Get a deep breath on 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in and let it out. Okay, you guys are gonna rock this. Just have fun with it. I'm really excited, and I'm sure all these people are as well. So
you're gonna rock this too.
Thanks. All right, admitting everybody now.
Okay.
Welcome everybody. Hi Brandon. Hi Michael. Hey Alana. Katoya. Hey Rena. And I see we have one more person, Sarah, joining us. So we'll just give her a couple of seconds. Looks like she's connecting to audio. Welcome, welcome everyone.
Wow.
Thank you for being more than on time. We're just going to give everyone a few more minutes to join who might be running late, whether it's from work or they're out on a walk or whatever it is they're doing. Hey, yeah, absolutely utilize the chat. As you can probably see, this is being recorded. We know there were a bunch of people who wanted to be here tonight who unfortunately couldn't. So we're going to be recording the panel portion of the event that's going on. But for the workshops, that stuff won't be accessible to people afterwards, though everyone here is welcome to keep in touch with both the panelists and with each other. We're hoping to do more of these in the future. If you want to have your camera on, we would love to see your faces, but if not, no pressure to do so. Just as an FYI and bits of Zoom etiquette, please keep your microphone off and be cognizant. We don't want someone's dog barking in the background and some little wisdoms and stuff to get lost by people. So with that being said, I'll just take us through as we're waiting for a few more people to join, kind of the agenda for today so you know what's coming up. So welcome everyone again. As I'm reading through this, please drop where in the chat where you're zooming in from today. I'd love to see where everybody's coming in from. But yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us for the finance and investing, make it make sense. So our agenda today is we'll do like a little bit of intros, which is where the portion is we're in right now. We'll talk a little bit about, the current climate surrounding finances, investing. We'll hear stories directly from our panelists. And after the panel portion, we'll have an opportunity for a mini Q&A. So you guys will get to ask questions, store that stuff up, drop it in the chat. We'll be paying attention. After that, we'll have breakout rooms. So each of our panelists has put together a workshop that I'm really excited for all of you guys to experience. And don't worry right now if you're like, I need more info, I'm not sure which room I want to go to. Listen to what the panelists are sort of saying, see if you want to maybe get to know them a little bit better, you're interested in the topic of their workshop. I'll be sending out a poll later in the event during the Q&A portion, so just keep a lookout for that. It'll pop up as a separate window, and you can choose which one you want to go into. And then I'll help, on the back end, make sure everyone gets to the right room. And I will repeat all this again later, so don't worry if you're not as familiar with Zoom yet. Yeah, and then after that, we'll make sure we come back to close stuff out. We'll kind of go over like key insights from all of the groups, since not everyone will be able to be in every single workshop at once. And we'll just say thank you to you all and wish you a beautiful rest of the day. So for everyone just joining, just a couple, Zoom etiquette rules. We're recording this panel just to make sure we can share it with people who weren't able to make it tonight. The panel portion will be available, but the workshops later will not be. And please, be mindful of if your microphone is on or off. I just want to make sure everyone can hear what the panelists are saying. So that being said, utilize the chat. Tell us where you're from, connect with other people. If something's resonating with you, what the panelists say, please drop it in there. I'm sure they'd love to see it. And again, if you want to have your video on, you're perfectly welcome to. We'd love to see your faces, but we also know that maybe you're listening to this as you're out on a walk, or you're commuting home from work, or whatever it might be, if you're not just strictly working from home. So quick foundational stuff before we get started. You can expect all the panelists today to speak to some of their own experiences on how they've tackled finance, investing, negotiating, and building up communities and support systems, why all of this is really important to them, and how they really see their finance goals evolving into 2021. So one thing that we wanted to talk about before we really jump in, having these kind of conversations and really examining them is just a start. And so this panel and small group discussions to follow in the workshops are really just a jumping off point. And this won't be the end all be all. It won't be a solution or advice that will fit every single individual. And we know, you know, money is a very taboo subject, and it's something that maybe we feel really uncomfortable even bringing up. Some of the stuff brought up here today might be completely new to you, and stories you might hear might bring up a lot of feelings. It might be anxiety or fear or frustration, and that's totally, totally normal to feel a lot of different things. Everyone's situation is different. So whatever comes up, the panelists will be here, we'll be providing resources, and everyone is open to continuing the conversations that spark here today. So actually starting the panel part of the event now that I'm really excited about. So your panelists we have today, we have Alana, Stella, and Vaughn Marie, just to give you a little bit of background about who these wonderful badass women are. Alana is an experienced entrepreneur, an investor, and a contemporary acrylic painter. She previously launched McKinsey's venture group along with a number of other successful startups. Most recently, she launched EVE or Eve, a financial advice on demand with programs based on your unique psychology. Stella is an artist, a financial healer, a community builder, and the creator of My Gold Standard. She believes in financial freedom for all and has supported over 300 individuals in defining their own meaning of wealth and success. She encourages you to say, fuck the noise, and to rewrite your own money story. In her personal time, you can find her having a serious love affair for horror movies, indie games, and share. Fawn Marie is an empowerer of those around her, a cash flow management guru, an investor and personal finance coach, helping people become organized and create easy systems around managing money. She dreams that people have the ability to count their dollars like sheep and make money in their sleep. Outside of her 9 to 5, she's having fun strategizing money with friends and family, being Dominican, bodybuilding, painting, and studying for her CPA. And if we have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, you might be like, who is this person? My name is Amanda Kelly Espiritu. I'm an artist, executive producer, community builder, and I really love to play in the intersection of everything from art and music to science and technology. I've helped grow global communities with different ones from So Far Sounds to the Confetti Project, Stageless Arts, Kettle Space, Hacker Paradise, a bunch of different ones that I have a lot of love for. But primarily, I love bringing people together to really reignite their passions, sate curiosity, and connect with people around them, because I really do believe that creativity and creative thinking helps us transcend borders and language barriers. So now that we know who we're going to be listening to today, we're just going to kick some stuff up. So again, if you joined a little bit late, our panelists will be talking directly from stories to their experiences, and we'll have a breakout portion of the workshops later in this event, and look out for a poll during the Q&A portion. We'll have you kind of pick which room you want to go into and which panelists you want to learn more from. So that being said, I'm going to kick off the panel portion of our event. Let's see. So I would love to hear, Alana, from you first. So speaking from your experience with finances, what have you kind of been seeing that has changed during the pandemic, and what has maybe been challenging, or what's something that you've really learned or stood out to you this year?
Well, I mean, it's been a very volatile and uncertain year for many of us on so many dimensions. And I think that has played in even more so in the financial markets, where especially in March, we saw a huge dip, and that historically has caused a lot of panic and fear and uncertainty in just how to be investing and what it means to have financial security and stability. There's also record unemployment, and that's starting to improve, which is a great sign. But it's just been tough financially this year across many dimensions. And I think what I've seen as a result of that are some really good things, and then some other not as great things. So on the good side, I'd say we've seen more than ever communities forming. My group of friends and professional network included. That's part of what inspired Eve to begin, was a place to start that conversation. And I'd say that we've also seen a lot more attention on personal finances and really following the money, like what is bringing joy and what is not, and basically shedding what is not. It's been like the Mary Kondo year of spirituality and finance and all things relationships. And so I think that can be incredibly powerful, but also sometimes painful. And then on the not as great side is just we've seen, an increase in sort of individual stock trading activity, and things that like Robinhood getting fined $65 million for not looking at the suitability of the investors who were investing on that platform. And I think it's more time than ever to be thinking about, our risk tolerance and profiles, and just making sure we're making good decisions that actually fit our goals and our lives, and making sure we're taking accountability for that, especially as platforms, expand and change over time.
Totally. Thanks, Alana. I think that's definitely really prevalent. Stella, could you relate to any of that? Does any of that resonate with you?
It does. And I'm glad you picked on me because
I know.
I had things to say and I'm going to say them now. Hi, everyone. I'm Stella. So I'm going to speak on a personal level because I do feel that when the pandemic hit and the recession began, I had a multitude of clients that were freaking out. And to be honest, as a financial consultant, I was also freaking out because I'm 29. This is my first, I guess, so there was 2008, but this was really my first time as an adult seeing how that affected people emotionally. So on a personal level for me, it felt like everything changed, but at the same time, like nothing at all changed for me. And I say this because on paper, my personal experience was that my partner got laid off. So, there was that. I took a 30% pay cut. We had depleted our savings and moved to the Bay Area from New York. So there was nothing really that we could fall back on at the time that happened. But in the end, we were fine. My partner got a new job. I ended up quitting my job because that was one of my Marie Kondos. I was like, I feel like I am on the precipice of another chapter and I want to be in that chapter now. And I was able to I had a lot of privilege in getting my ducks in a row to be able to make those decisions. But what helped me stay grounded, and this is why I feel like nothing at all changed at the same time, was that I made sure to recommit to my mindset practices to make sure that I wasn't making emotional decisions behind my money, investments, savings, spending, making money even, because I was so used to working and earning money all the time. This is the first time that I had actively chosen not to be making income in a way that I could count on every 2 weeks. So this was a new change for me, but I made sure to, stay grounded and tell myself that no matter what's going on in the world, these changes aren't going to set me back. It's just going to look different. And that was something that I shared a lot with my clients as well. So, the challenge was consistently shattering our cultural money boxes and just staying true to my intentional decisions and encouraging others that I worked with to do so as well. So, Alana, I'm sure that you heard lots of anxieties and held space for a lot of that during March. But as everyone can see now, the stock market, while it's still volatile, it's not like March. It bounced back, and it always will. Just like me in my, financial personal situation, I've bounced back multiple times. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing. I know I've been along for that ride, and I appreciate, your constant transparency and vulnerability. I'm sure that, while we're all in different situations, there's going to be aspects of stuff that all of us are sharing that really are going to hit home for people, or maybe help them shift their perspective and think of things in a new way. So thank you for sharing that. Vaughn, how about you? What do you think this year has changed for you in terms of finances and things that have been challenging? You've worked with so many different communities, ones who have, far less access to a lot of resources that maybe people don't even consider. And you've worked with, with mothers, you've worked with children. What can you speak to from you, or even from your own family? Because I know you guys all live and are around each other so much. I'm sure you've kind of seen things across even that generational portion too.
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest challenge has been managing, I guess, the ability to work from home, which I'm grateful for, and also everyone else's worlds literally colliding in one space. And I do live in a small apartment in the Bronx with my mom and my sister. So my sister's constantly on call. I'm constantly trying to keep my own focus and do my accounting work. But it has been hard. Um, but as at the same time, I'm also a busy bee as well. I would say I'm not very good at staying home. So the whole quarantine thing was kind of driving me up the wall. And something I was really paying attention to was who I was talking to on a daily basis and checking in with my friends like yourself. I know we had like group chats and group Zooms just to keep the sanity, and I was crying a lot, and it was totally really unlike me. And when it came to keeping the peace, I actually took on painting. So watercolor painting, just blurbs, nothing to share, I'm not a Picasso, but it definitely helped to create some kind of tranquility. And it was not very expensive of a hobby either, but also a hobby where my time, I could forget about the minutes ticking, and the busyness in my head and the constant stress. For one of my clients, she actually lost almost, well, she was able to transition one of her income sources from in person. She was a personal trainer. She was able to transition to online individual training and coaching, which was really great. And as a result of working with her before all of the pandemic happened, she still had enough money to move to California and act like nothing happened. So when it comes to all of these instances and like thinking about the past versus now, the importance of planning and sharing with people what you're up to and really tapping into the lives of other people and realizing your network, realizing other people's networks and asking for help. And like, I've had to ask for help. I've had to ask for people to call me and check on me. That's not something I do. But this pandemic has really humbled me as a person. And when it comes to money, it has definitely opened my eyes on in terms of being more cautious and definitely asking for help, in all senses of the word. But it's been interesting on the investment side as well. I was a little nervous to invest, but a strategy of mine is to invest only the amount that you wouldn't like really be stressed about if it was completely gone. So I did make some early investments at the beginning of the pandemic just to see what would happen. And it turned out pretty well. So I've been looking at that and checking that out, but also thinking about the future and saving as well. So it's been interesting.
For sure. Thanks for sharing, Don. And all of us, I think, in our conversations we've had even offline, or the ones I've been having with other friends, I think like there's this common theme of sort of resilience to what we're doing. But we've also talked a lot about reimagining and redefining kind of like what's possible. And I think that community portion is something that all of us like find really important, of tapping into you know our networks, our friends, kind of crowdsourcing ideas instead of us, going at it alone and trying to figure it all out in the dark when we're like, well, we feel blind or we don't know where to go. And sometimes that's the biggest thing, is like, I don't even know where to start. Like, where are the resources? This is overwhelming. I don't feel like this is sort of approachable. So as we're like kind of thinking about redefining or reimagining what 2021 could look like, what does that sort of look like for you going into 2021 of building these kind of communities? Um, Alana, can I pass that back over to you, just because I know you're beta testing something that I'm super excited that you're going to be opening up to people, and I'd love for you to share that with everyone here.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so I think early in March, I kind of realized that I have a lot of male friends in my life who have WhatsApp groups and different communities that they tap into to think about investing strategies and opportunities. And I realized that I did not have one, and a lot of my friends didn't have one. And so we started that early in March, and it started with a group of 15, and then it was 30, and then it was 40, and it just kept growing. And I think what we've seen from that is just the power in peer networks, which we already kind of know from a professional angle, but I hadn't really, or even a personal angle with like women's circles or, men's groups. And I think I just was really appreciative to see what can happen in terms of confidence building and actually moving into action, right? So I think a lot of times you really need to test it out for yourself and take small steps, like literally just opening the accounts and putting your first 1,000 or 100 or $1, whatever it is, into a strategy that you believe in and have really thought through. So it's the power and community there has been really powerful and a great test to see what people are open to sharing. And I've been actually so surprised by the level of openness and how much more comfortable people are in sharing with peers and groups of friends, even more so maybe than like a stranger or financial advisor, especially in the onset. And so we've sort of taken that concept and are now rapidly rolling that out to multiple different networks and communities starting in the new year. And it's a project called Eve, which I'm going to happily share the information to everyone here following the session. But one of the key components to the matching actually uses behavioral psychology, and we're working with a really amazing PhD psychologist from Columbia in developing that. So would love everyone who's willing or interested to try that psychology-backed survey and get a sense of their money goals and money personality as they go into the new year, and how that might help them get paired to a great cohort to learn from.
Sure, thanks, Alana. I think it's really exciting that that's going to be kicking off and is very much already underway. Vaughn, let's throw it to you. What do you think when I'm asking about redefining or reimagining, particularly through that sort of community lens? You did speak to some of it earlier, but is there anything else as you're going into it that you would recommend for people, or personal stuff that you're working on and want to be reaching certain people for?
For when it comes to me, in relation to community and community building, I haven't really been in this particular 6 months working on building out any community per se, but I am an open book. I do have different people reaching out to me and asking me for recommendations on a tax professional or someone that could answer a 401k question. And over time, I've developed a very good network. So I do feel like I'm a good resource, and I like to be a source for someone else. So I am conscious of that, and I definitely keep track of who's good for what, and have a spreadsheet. So when it comes to, I guess, building community, I do feel like it's important to support that and be a sounding board and kind of, an open book in that sense, and welcoming any questions and any conversation about money, because I really don't have anything to hide. And I think that especially this day and age with like the political climate as well, it's so important to just have transparency and accountability. And I think that that's something, I support. And, if you have questions or want someone for any particular thing, I'm here. So I'd say that that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and just on a personal note, I feel like Vaughn has advised me on a lot of really great things that kind of helped me shift my perspective on stuff. So thank you, Vaughn. But also, I think there's this element, right, of like, things have fallen apart. We don't have it all together. We don't necessarily have to be experts, but I think there's an element, right, of curiosity and kind of jumping in and figuring it out as we go, and knowing that, there is, yes, some risk involved in some of this stuff, but if we don't try something new, sometimes like you don't end up moving anywhere and it doesn't end up shifting anything at all. And then you find yourself in a sort of cycle that might, be really difficult to get out of. And I think it's even more overwhelming when you go at it on your own. So thank you for speaking to that. Stella, how about you? How do you think when you're talking about reimagining or redefining community support around this?
Well, this year has been enlightening for me, and I'm throwing it back to, which feels so long ago, but it was just in March that this happened, where we were at the phase of the pandemic where everyone was like hoarding toilet paper and just hoarding everything, hoarding savings, like not spending, all of that good stuff. And I thought that was interesting because, come May and June and maybe even July and maybe a little bit until now, there was a huge resurgence in giving because of the tragedies of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And a lot of people were showing up and, giving and giving and giving, which is great. So for me, I kind of was curious about that for my own self, because, I've always been a big supporter of economic justice, like for myself, but I've never really, I'm going to give myself a little credit because I was about to totally dim my light, but I've always been a fundraiser, but I didn't want to be a fundraiser anymore. I wanted to actually foster a community that believe in economic justice, that believe in sparking that flame in others as well. I think that sometimes we think that, our efforts don't really go a long way, but when it's a ripple effect, it truly does. And that is something that I'm just starting to build now and continuing on into 2021. And, realizing that things are always going to pop up and there's always going to be shit on the news, but I don't want things to pop up and shit be on the news for me to enact that change. I want it to be a sustainable thing where it's incorporated in our budgets and in our daily life and in our intentions and how we show up for ourselves. And how we show up for ourselves is how we're going to show up for the world. So, I'm just starting to plant this seed, and I encourage others to do the same because I want our, intersectional garden to be plentiful and that we can, have things that benefit us all, sprout and turn into a really beautiful thing. So, yeah.
Thanks. And, all three of you, right? Like, again, that expert piece, I think there's always this element for all three of you that's like very grounded, and you're always like, wanting to learn new things and collaborate with people. It's not something that you're just going out by yourself and banging your head against a wall. Kind of looking back a little bit, or I just, bringing in that sort of self-reflection piece I think we're all doing right now is we're like the year in review, like 2020. What do you think that were like essential skills you've developed to get where you are today and that have kind of helped you succeed when it comes to tackling, issues of finance or negotiations when you're going into, conversation with maybe your boss at work, or, even starting to look at investing? If you can kind of think back to, when you maybe just started or you started getting curious about these things, as some people that are on the call tonight or maybe watching the panel portion of this event in the future, what were things that you kind of wish you had known when you were starting out that, maybe I should have, developed like networking and doing like research more. Maybe I should have, worked on or gotten advice from people on how to like be a bit more resilient, which I think, again, that piece of resilience this year has been such a thing. So in terms of maybe like essential skills as you look back, or things that you've maybe even just discovered that you found useful today, how did those skills sort of get cultivated within you? What are ones that you think that people should sort of focus on going into the new year? Let's switch it up a little bit, and Stella, start with you.
Cool. gosh, where to even start? It's like, oh, such a loaded question, but so important and so good. So for me, this year has really grounded me into my intuition. Every financial decision I make, it comes from a place of intention, and that intention is made with my intuition, from how I spend money, invest money, save money, and also make money. So everything money related, I am very intentional about it. And I have a very big financial literacy background, but just because I know all these things doesn't mean that I am going to implement them. And I've seen that with my clients as well. You know, there is an emotional and spiritual side that gets, and psychological side, Alana, you know all about this, that gets kind of cast away, and we just focus on the numbers instead of the meaning behind the numbers. So for me this year, I was really great at tackling the mental and emotional, but not the spiritual side. I was very resistant to it, actually, just because it didn't really resonate with me for a while, but I felt that side was lacking, especially with all the uncertainty and the energy in a time like this was very heavy and volatile, right? And so I have to shout out a person that I work with, Denitha Doe. Her program that I am a part of is called Money Makers, and she talks about all these spiritual things and practices and thought processes behind money, economic systems, things that I wouldn't even thought of. And I really feel like it just changed my life and how I view things on a whole different level. So that's my answer there.
Great. Thanks, Stella. Vaughn, how about you? What do you feel like are kind of essential skills you've developed or you wish you'd known you should have developed earlier? Is it something like, you know, that intentionality piece Stella was just speaking to? Is it having more compassion and patience for other people, or maybe just even with yourself? Like, what's kind of coming up for you?
Well, I'd say what's coming up for me, wait, am I, yes, I'm unmuted. What's coming up for me, the skills that I had to learn, it's taking me back to my college days when I was a poor college student and kind of struggling to manage my work study, like paycheck and make sure I had money to buy my snack before work or my lunch for the day on my Metro card. So the essential skill that I developed and like I do advertise about myself is that, you know, cash flow and managing it, just taking into account and anticipating what is going to come up, what's next, essentially. I was always thinking what's next, and I think that's like my survival Bronx mindset, and like I need to make it, I need to get to the next level, the next chapter. So that's something that I did develop as a result of my upbringing and my environment. And I think it's served me well. I've been able to teach people around me how to manage and how to anticipate and how to organize around these anticipated events and live a good life too, because I love to have fun. So that's also really important. How can I have fun while also just managing my anticipations and the things that are coming up that are important that need to be there. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I think you did mention negotiating. And one of the things that I did have experience with in the last couple years was negotiating a new salary within my current role. So that was a very, very stressful situation for me. I was really, 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 really nervous. Like I wasn't sleeping. It was just taking over my life because, you know, I had an out of body experience sitting in front of my boss, and I wasn't there while I was talking. I know words were coming out, but I wasn't saying them. It was like I had this script almost in my head. But what I really, I grounded myself in the fact that I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to work for the company that I work for. And basically leaving wasn't the solution. A lot of times we hear negotiation. It's like, whatever I want and that's it. I'm out the door. And what I really got grounded to was that I was on a team and it wasn't all about me. So what I had to take away was hearing about what my CFO wanted, what changes he wanted to see, and how I could actually attach myself to those things he wanted and kind of add value in that sense, things that I wasn't aware were even an issue. And it turned out really positively. So listening to other people, listening to what's there for them and not necessarily always what's there for you, that also takes the edge off the whole conversation. And it's more about how do we make the pie bigger versus how do you secure your piece. And it's very it's a different way of thinking about these conversations. So it's been interesting.
For sure. Thanks so much for sharing, Mom. Alana, how about you? I know there's all these different things, and I know all four of us, right, have both worked in corporate, we've consulted for people, we've freelanced, we have side hustles, whatever it might be. What do you think are kind of the essential skills that have really stood out to you for this year, and what would you recommend people kind of try to hone in on developing into 2021?
Yeah, I really want to just echo and reflect back on what's been said, because I think that's so crucial, the idea of intention. And I think what Vaughn was saying a lot about just not having the scarcity mindset, which is so much easier sometimes said than done, but how do you really come at things with abundance and not out of fear? I've been recently rereading the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I really love that, because I think that's sort of core to a few of the key skills that I would mention. And I think, a little earlier on in my career, I noticed that, your manager can play a really instrumental role in helping you guide some of even your financial decision making, right? Like how to navigate a 401k, or how to even contribute and what the max contributions are. And I think remembering that role that person can play in someone's life is huge, even just as a mentor, to say, hey, here are some of the basics, some of the checklist items that can really make the difference. Because we see it time and time again that starting early, especially in some of those fundamentals, can have huge compounding effects. And happy to share some of those resources and numbers later. But the difference of starting at 20 versus 40 can be pretty significant. And if you can have the guidance to know to do that, or to be that guidance for someone else, that can be extremely powerful. And then the other thing that I noticed, at least this year, especially working with sort of high earning potential or professional women who are really in it, that sometimes we can get so focused on our own advancement within career or maybe even salary, but not necessarily be simultaneously advancing our investment strategy, or how we're actually putting that money that we're working so hard to obtain to work for us as well. And so I've really tried to focus on prioritizing that and taking the time to think about it, rather than having the fear of not knowing or not being a domain expert, and feeling the fear and doing it anyway, and really diving into it. So that, I think, is a core skill that I love to both support people in thinking through and also do myself.
Absolutely. Totally agree with everything you just said. And you bring up an interesting piece, right, about like that sort of mentorship aspect, right? Like so much of what we've done maybe is like we have access to all these different, databases, search engines, newsletters, like whatever it might be that we're pulling all this information from. But as you're kind of also, looking back, both in reflection and, coming out of very much like November kind of being this like huge month of gratitude, for things that have been possible, for things that have changed, all of that. Is there anyone that you would want to shout out and give thanks to who's been like a mentor to you, who's kind of informed how you go about now supporting different people, whether it's friends and family or people that you're working with and are coming to you guys for advice for? You know, what is it about them that you admire? Like, who are those people? Stella, let's jump back to you.
I prepared my answer for this question. I really did, because I am so freaking blessed. Let me just tell you. I'm going to start, because I just mentioned this person, I'm going to start with her, Denitha Doe. You know, she's a treasured friend, but also mentor. The spirituality and the relationship that we have, like where we cheer each other on being rich. You know, money is not a taboo in this friendship, which I really appreciate, you know, not feeling limits when talking about money, which is really important. And Gabby Miranda of Joy Pursuit, she's a long time, you know, Gabby, Amanda, she's a longtime friend of mine. She helped me get really clear about, you know, my intentions and owning my financial desires unapologetically. And I have this incredible accountability group. We call ourselves the Pineapple Club, and they're actually old coworkers of mine from my previous job. We are all financial coaches, and we kind of banded together, and they just have immense compassion for me and are very adamant about holding me to my promises, aka, you know, holding me accountable. And my partner, who teaches me to believe in myself, because he believes in me every day. And, you know, the reason I'm sharing all of this is because if you want your dreams to come true, you have to surround yourself with people that believe in you. It's, you know, it makes the journey so much more fun. You know, Vaughn, we're talking about fun. That does make it more fun and sweeter. And when you find your people, like, everything becomes possible. So, you know, I just feel really blessed. And yeah, because of them, you know, the world is my oyster.
Sure. Thanks, Stella. Vaughn, how about you?
I would say that for this question, I've been asked this question a lot in the last year. I've done other presentations, and it's gratitude. You can't skip gratitude when you're talking, and it's just, it helps to add positivity to the space. So my biggest mentor, my favorite mentor, is my mom. And definitely because she's on this call, by the way. And and it's definitely because of the way that, you know, she had bigger dreams and goals for me than I could even imagine. And so her putting I guess, resources and just really being the thorn in my back, to make sure I did all the things that would allow me to be more successful than she was, I guess. And it's definitely twofold, because my success is her success. And so I think that when you really adopt that mentality that you're only as good as the person that you're helping, and things like that, and really have some skin in the game as to what other people accomplish, and allow them to accomplish those goals and dreams, it makes a huge difference. And no one forgets about the people that help them. Nobody forgets them, and they live on forever. So I'd say that my mom is my favorite and my biggest mentor, teaching me how to manage my money from early on, how to balance a checkbook back when checkbooks were a thing. Just really giving me the basics that I was never going to come across on my own, and kind of being at the forefront of all of that. So education and financial literacy, even though she was a single mother, didn't have the same resources, but things that she knew, she learned to teach them to me early. So I'm grateful for that.
For sure. And such a wonderful thing of like this exchange of knowledge, right? To be learning from each other, to be like wanting more for the people who are to come. Um, and there's this like really wonderful element of like paying stuff forward, of, you know, really just wanting to share the knowledge that it really isn't a scarcity thing. A lot of this, well, I feel like finances might feel like it's such a competition and it's very based in like the numbers. I think like this year has kind of taught us in all walks of life that that support is like so inherent, and being able to kind of give and give from a giving place, even when, you know, maybe it's really hard and challenging to do so, can kind of help shift even just like the energy portion of it. But yeah, Alana, circling over back to you, is there anyone that you think of as like, gosh, this person has just been like the most incredible mentor, or even more like public figures, who stands out to you when you're thinking about this?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I just think I would love to answer it by just sharing something I've connected to over the last 2 years, which is a concept of a personal board of advisors. And I bring that up because I think it's sort of like a holistic answer to that question, at least the way I try to see it. Um, that, you know, there's so many different people in the world who will want to give you advice or will give you unsolicited advice, and there's so many influences in the world, and I've really tried to focus on narrowing that to a trusted group that I call my personal board of advisors. And I really truly do listen to those individuals, and I try to think about, you know, if I'm going to take additional advice, do they fit into that group? And what that criteria is for me to really hone in and take that level of support. So that spans everything, right? It's my the people who support my mental health, my professional career, and advisors, my physical health, and even family and friends. And I think just knowing that I have that tight community and tight board of, you know, advisors is extremely helpful. And a part of that too is a women's group that I participated in and formed, you know, a few years ago. And I can't emphasize enough the power in like community and peer groups in all aspects of life.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you all of you for the stories, both yours and for others that you've helped, and just carrying all of that and being here. I'm gonna close out this portion of the panel because I'm curious, and I'm sure you guys are too, if people have questions, if there's stuff that has resonated. For everyone who's on the call, please feel free to throw questions into the chat if you have any. If you haven't opened the chat function yet, along the bottom of your screen, if you're on your laptop, you should see a bunch of different icons. There's a chat portion. You're welcome to throw things in there. And it should say to everyone, so we'll all be able to see it. But if you accidentally send it to someone else and it's kind of, you know, outlined in red, that's just a private message. But while we're thinking of it, I'm also just going to open up the polling. So if you guys will see a pop-up window come across your screen that'll ask you, you know, which room and which workshop you want to go into, which panelists. So I'll leave that open for a little bit. It's going live now. So feel free to pick which one, and I'll let you guys into the different workshops in just a few minutes. Okay. Awesome. Let's see if anyone has any questions. It's got some private stuff. Okay, so I think there's this element still of that like fear of getting started, I think. So if I don't feel like I'm an expert who can, you know, talk about finances with family or friends, like how do I bring that up to them? I know that we've kind of touched on this in a sense, right? Of none of us are really experts. It's kind of a matter of jumping in and get started. But does one of you want to field that one?
And just to clarify, Amanda, so it's more having the conversation with family versus getting started yourself?
Yeah, I think it's maybe having it with family. I know even personally for me, it's talking about finances with my family. Sometimes I'll get pushback in that maybe my dad or my mom will be like, oh, well, like you don't have to worry about it. Like I'm taking care of it. So, you know, I'm not sure everyone can relate to that sort of scenario, right? But sometimes, at least for me, it's definitely challenging in certain scenarios to bring up sort of money talk with family. especially when, I very much have been accepting, right? Like my parents are getting older, like tomorrow is not really guaranteed. So, as I'm looking at planning stuff out for the future, like what do my parents want to do with their finances, So is there any advice you can give people on this call if they wanted to approach a money talk, particularly with family?
I mean, it's not my area of expertise. I think I'm still on that journey, but I'd love to hear from the other women as well. But I do feel like more and more these conversations are going to need to come up. And I do think that there is a, role to play in understanding, like, especially parents' wishes. And then there's also the journey of like your independence as an individual rather than just a daughter or son, and having that separate conversation. So I think those are two different kind of money talks, but I do feel like historically having those close-knit conversations can be great to actually give the structure and the intention up front. And I think the topic of intention has been a really big one on this call. Why do you want to have that conversation from like a really loving and heart-centered place first, starting with the why and then getting into what can sometimes be like the harder details. I think also giving parents and other stakeholders in your life heads up that you want to have that conversation and asking and knowing their preferences for set and setting, so it doesn't feel so conflicting or difficult, can really help set things up for success. And then I think depending on the conversation, there can be some really great resources in even the types of questions and like the sequence that can be really helpful. So especially for family wishes and estate planning, there's some resources that I'm happy to share too that I've recently been looking into, have that conversation with my family as well.
Yeah, I definitely always appreciate it. So I also, if that's something you want to send along to me, like before tomorrow, everyone, you will get, some resources and get to be able to connect with our lovely panelists that are here tonight. So Alana, if you do send that to me, I'm happy to send it through to everyone there too. Awesome. Vaughn, how about you? Does anything with that question kind of relate? Do you have an idea? Because clearly, like, right, you do talk with your mom about this kind of stuff. Was that something that was just established in the relationship? Was it kind of you guys meeting in the middle, or you were curious about stuff? How did you kind of enter that the relationship that you can just go back and forth with this stuff with your mom?
Well, I think that my mom actually took initiative for the beginning of all of these conversations, but now as an adult, I'm pretty much the one kind of watching out for my own back for things that might pop up. Because the more time I spend on on earth and in this society, I'm seeing, oh, I never asked my mom about that. And actually the whole death scare this summer with COVID and my whole family being asthmatic, we're all asthmatic. So like COVID was freaking me out, keeping me in my house. And I'm like, what am I gonna do if I go outside or any of us get COVID? And so I had to, just really be authentic and say, hey, how do we mitigate this risk that I see coming up? And what are we going to do if you pass away? You're the one that owns the apartment. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Or like kind of questions where you're asking about avoiding something, or asking about the process of something really helps. But as a result, I was able to kind of strategize and think about like exact amount that I needed coverage for in terms of insurance and life insurance. And now I have coverage because with COVID, it would have, should my mom have gotten COVID, I wouldn't have been able to get a policy at all for her. So that was a liability I would have had to kind of absorb. So I'm always thinking ahead, and now I do think about asking other people questions. I reached out to like my nearest like insurance agent, and then I called my best friend in Atlanta. She sent me another person. So asking for help from other people, asking about how other people are really approaching it with their parents, and seeing, because we all have people dealing with these things, and sometimes we don't talk about it. But if you ask in a DM, somebody will tell you the answer. And it'll be okay. So
For sure. There's definitely been an element of maybe like a little bit of role play of like, can I practice this conversation with you?
yeah.
I feel like I've done that with you before, Vaughn, maybe, and it might have been about
Mm-hmm.
negotiating at work, but still, I know that, that you and I have been like, okay, this is sort of what I'm thinking, like, is this crazy? So when it comes for you to talk about stuff with family, which, you know, I know in our conversations we've had over the years that we've been friends, like it can definitely be super, super challenging, whether it's money or talking about feelings in general or whatever it might be. Sometimes just, you know, opening the door for a conversation can be challenging in and of itself, but you know, maybe it's chatting with friends first and warming up, and you know, you have a really wonderful partner in Sean, so maybe it's sense checking stuff there too. But when you know, the person who's asking this is asking about, you know, if I want to, I just don't feel like I'm an expert and I don't even know where to start to talk about this kind of stuff with family, what advice would you give?
So I grew up in a household where money, I just saw the money mistakes because of the lack of conversation and communication. And, you know, on a personal note, like my father unexpectedly passed, you know, 5 years ago now. And like I'm estranged from my mother, but what happened for me in that moment was that I didn't know what to do with that money, and I knew that I didn't like the problem that I was in. I knew that that was a problem and I didn't like it. And so I started to have conversations with my partner about money. We have joint finances. Every financial decision we make is together. Even if it's something that I personally want to do for me, that's still a part of our financial conversations, you know, just because I want to have a, you know, eat, pray, love trip in, I don't know, wherever. And, you know, we save for that. And same with, you know, his student loans. My dad's beneficiary money, which was very little because he didn't plan to die. I got to pay off my student loans with that, which was great. But he, you know, Sean, my partner, still has student loans. And because we are building a life together, you know, we're tackling that together. And it makes things so much easier when you talk about money in the context of being a team. Like, this is something we're working together. I will tell you, the first 3 months of that entire door that you open is going to be hell. You're going to have lots of arguments. You're not going to be on the same page, and it's going to be tough. But once you get that Band-Aid ripped off, the harmony that comes after that and the wealth that you grow together individually and then collectively is really, really amazing. And the trust that you build, there was no trust that my family had with one another because there was no conversation of that. So with my partner, you know, and with myself, we trust each other, and are always in service of our best interests when it comes to money. That's,
Sure.
yeah, that's my answer.
Thanks so much for sharing, Stella. All right. I saw a couple people join. I know people have been going in and out. There's a lot going on a Monday night. If you see on your screen, there should be a poll window that's still up. I'm going to leave it open for like 15 more seconds. It's just asking which workshop are you interested in attending. So our 3 lovely panelists have put together some really wonderful stuff. So if you're curious about hearing maybe directly more from that panelist, or you're curious about even just the title of their workshop, pick one of those. Awesome. I see 100% of people voted now, so great. I'm going to end the poll. And then I'm just going to assign people to the breakout rooms manually based on which one you guys picked. So As I'm getting that set up in a couple of minutes, one other question that came through for our panelists, you know, I know there's some things that you guys are building, there's some stuff that's in progress, or there's resources and communities you rely on from, I don't know if we had talked about it during this panel, but, you know, from Ladies Get Paid to being a money maker through like Money and Mimosas, which Stella, I know that you're a part of. So this person's like worried about, you know, finance plans falling apart. So are there online communities or resources that you guys might recommend right now that we'll recap for people later as well? If you guys could talk to that while I just get this stuff set up, that would be super appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stella, can I pass it to you?
Yeah, sure. I could go first. So what I would recommend is there's two places that I would recommend. Ladies Get Paid is a place that I am a part of, and asking, not even just asking financial questions for myself, but seeing other people ask those questions and seeing those answers, I think is really helpful. Another thing is that, you know, financial advice is not a one size fit all, and I'm just going to suggest myself because I create financial plans to your unique situation. I have helped tons of clients who I gave a plan to, and then that plan was thrown in the garbage because this whole pandemic was basically a shit show. And we just repivot, you know, and we make sure that we know that we're in control of our narrative no matter what's going on in the world. And, you know, I do have a community on Discord that I'm building. I don't know if anyone knows what Discord is, but it is like the nerdy version of Slack. I'm a gamer, so that's like where I you know, am with my gaming community, but also with my financial community. And I'm happy to personally answer some questions through that community as well.
Awesome. Sorry, still gonna interject for 1 second. Apologies guys for the tech issues. I'm not able to pull and see everybody's results from the poll. But yes, wonderful thing about the Discord. I definitely am going to be joining that. Guys, if you're one of the attendees, could you just drop which workshop you guys want to go to in the chat, and I'll just pull from there and assign you guys. Thanks. Vaughn, how about you? Communities you kind of want to maybe throw out there as a jumping off point for people?
I would say that the community that I come back to over and over again, because the abundance is insane, is PDN. It's where I met all of you, personal development nerds on Facebook that my good friend Giovanni started, and another friend of his as well. Amazing. There's nothing like putting a question. It might be personal, whatever it is. Somebody always has an answer in that group. And it's my favorite group to ask questions in. When things are falling apart, when I'm looking for money, whatever, anything, you name it, a friend, you find it in there. So I definitely suggest personal development nerds, and for very particular money questions, usually I'm tapped into as a resource as well, similar to Stella, working on individuals and personal plans and things like that, and managing cash. So, you know, whatever makes you more comfortable. But definitely personal development nerds is a great place to start off if you're looking for community.
Thanks so much, Vaughn. And Alana, I mean, I know you spoke to what you're doing with Eve earlier, excuse me, but is there anything else you want to recap or new communities that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, I think have just really seen the power of peer communities. And I think if you have a clear group of people you would like to connect with on a regular basis and share with, then I think playing a leading role in facilitating that can be really great. And if you're looking for guidance on how to facilitate those sessions, I can be helpful there, and please do feel free to reach out. You can connect at our website, evewealth.com, which we'll share as well. But then also, joining a community like Eve, or I think that can be just extremely powerful. And obviously I do have to shout out PDN as well, because it is the reason that we're all together. And I think that's an incredible resource for more really personal development and connecting with like-minded people. So lots of great places to find good community to start the conversation with.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, all the love and shout outs to Giovanni, who was one of the main founders and is kind of running PDN. I think we all have a lot of love for you, and I hope whenever you see this, you enjoy watching this part back. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for that. It looks like I'm still missing a couple of people. Again, the poll we're having some technical issues with, so if you could just make sure that you drop, if you haven't already private messaged me, which room you want to go into the chat, that would be great. It looks like there's still 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like there's still 7 of you. But if you don't have a preference, you can also just tell me that too, and I'll put you in a room. But I'll give you guys 30 more seconds to send that through. Nicola, okay, so recapping the options for people. So Alana's workshop is Wealth Goal Mindset for 2021. Stella's workshop is Rewrite Your Money Story. And Vaughn Marie's workshop is Meaningful Money Talk. Steph, I'm not sure, sorry if I missed your message. Which room did you want to go into?
I believe I wanted to go to Alana's session on 2021 planning.
Got it. All right.
Good to see you, Steph.
Good to see you, Steph.
I love seeing everyone here. Also, moment.
So what do you
Oh,
I do love
I
the new
got hair,
hairstyle.
guys.
Amazing. Wow, that's amazing, girl.
For those who don't know me, I had to shave my head because I got alopecia.
Oh, yeah?
And now I got my hair back.
Killing the game, girl.
Okay. I'm gonna open the rooms. So if you guys haven't been in breakout rooms on Zoom before, you'll get a pop-up and it'll either ask you to join that breakout room or you'll just automatically be transferred over there, but you'll be with the other people who wanted to be part of that session. So the workshop portion of this will go, for about 45 minutes. You'll have stuff and activities to do with each of the panelists that they've prepped for you. And I'd recommend have some questions for them, talk amongst yourselves, get to know each other, because clearly you're all interested in at least this one theme. And just as a heads up, at the end, we'll kind of come back together to sort of recap some stuff before we say goodbye. So keep in mind what are key insights, things that have stood out to you, whether it was from during the panel portion of this event tonight, or what kind of comes up for you in the workshop. We would definitely love to hear it at the end. So I'm gonna open up the rooms. For the people who haven't sent through stuff yet, I'll chat with you guys. We'll get you started if you need some clarification on what the workshops are. So for the panelists, I will shoot you guys a message to let you know when you're good to start. But, say hi to some of the people who are in your room. And I will see you guys in a bit.
Hey, just waiting for everyone to join back in. Hope that was pretty powerful in terms of self-reflection. I popped in and out for a little bit, heard some interesting stuff. So I'm excited to see what kind of has resonated with all of you.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome back.
I had so much fun.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad I have host privileges and got to pop in and out. I love the little golden nuggets that I was hearing as I jumped around in the background. Hope it wasn't too distracting, but yeah, welcome back everybody. Thank you again for all of you for being here, for being curious. I'm sure there's a lot of curiosity that's been sparked about different things that our panelists have brought up, or, stories that have been shared about people that you've met here. And, this really is, again, like we said, just the beginning. And, some of you, it's really lovely to see you. I haven't seen you guys in ages. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being curious. And, I just wanted to set some time aside at the end before we all go off to our respective evenings or mornings, wherever in the world we are. If you want to unmute yourself and share stuff or put it in the chat, please share with us, like, what's something that's a key takeaway for you? Was there something that really resonated with you? We'd love to hear from you, and then I'd love to hear from the panelists too about, maybe a quick recap of kind of high level stuff that you guys went through in your workshops for people that, for this iteration of the event, they weren't able to attend yours, but maybe they would like to in the future. So for anyone who is a participant on the call, is there anything that really stood out to you tonight, or that you want to say to the three panelists collectively?
I guess one thing for me, hi, by the way, thank you so much for organizing this. I feel like one common thread was just like, talk about it. Like, I feel like there's this pressure, at least that I've felt in the past, that like, I mean, everybody's out there knowing their financial stuff and doing the right thing, and I just have no idea. So like, I guess I'll just like need to read a book one day and figure it out. But like, that just talking about it can go a long way.
Absolutely. Definitely think that's a common thread. Thanks for jumping in, Ellie. Anybody else?
Something that resonated for me, and thank you again to all the panelists and Amanda for hosting this, that resonated for me was the power of like being in collective conversation around finance. I think that was like the thing that kept coming up the most for me. It was like, oh, I actually can talk with like lots of people around this in a way that like will generate like, oh, there's a solution that I wouldn't think of on my own. And just remembering that like, it has me thinking about how in the United States, money is often used as like a way to separate and divide, but it's actually a way for us all to come together.
Absolutely. Great point, Brandon. Anyone else? No worries, I'm sure. Hey, Sarah, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to Alana because I was in her session and it was great. And I wanted to share something that I felt was really helpful about it. So Alana had us map out our lives based on a bunch of things, and I'm sure she'll send out a worksheet for later. But one of the things that I really liked from it was in planning, like, so one part of the worksheet was about your past, and we went from something that was kind of more concrete to things that are a little bit less concrete, like what kind of your like passion goals are and your investment goals are. And then when we did the future, we went backwards. So we started with like kind of your hopes and dreams, and then like figuring out how to pin that down to reality as you went down the funnel. And I found that really helpful for me because I've been very fortunate to like not be in the front lines of anything. For example, during COVID, I've kind of been stuck in place. And I definitely feel like I have a lot of energy to go towards something, but I don't know what direction I'm going towards. And it was really hard for me to think about like, what does the world need the most, or things like that, which it kind of feels like there's a bajillion different ways that I could be helping out or that I could be going. And it really helps for me to kind of like start from my passions and say like, what is it that I'm actually passionate about? And then deciding, what my career would look like in response to that while still maintaining my desire to do good in the world.
For sure. Thank you for sharing and for that lovely recap. Yeah, Alana, your deck looked awesome. And I definitely want to go back and like see what was going on. So thank you for putting that all together. Awesome. Any other participants want to share any like key takeaways or realizations that they had?
I guess this is for me. I guess I grew up in an environment that also, didn't really. I panicked and thinking about these things, So it's like actually being able to break it down into smaller pieces, and now I can actually see myself putting numbers and like having like, not just like ideas and things I want to do, but like numbers associated and ways to get there, which is like I think really incredibly powerful. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all. And I'll toss this back to our panelists. If you guys want to do some like high level recaps of maybe stuff that came up for you and the participants in your room, or kind of a little mini summary kind of what you guys went through in your workshop, it would be powerful to share for people who weren't in your room. And, if don't worry, there's going to be more stuff. You can always connect with everyone who was here tonight. So the conversations and all these things will continue to go. But Vaughn, if I could start with you, do you want to share with people what you took people through for your workshop?
For my workshop, I walk people through the negotiation, I guess, prep work. A lot of people get a lot of anxiety around even having conversations that look like a negotiation. When in reality, we have negotiations in all of our interactions, even ordering food from Chinese food or whatever we order, the prices and things like that. Just getting really clear about what your results look like. Kind of like Alana's workshop where you guys were planning the end goal. I also had a portion where we were planning out the end goal as well and working backwards from there. But just, being clear about the end goal, what it looks like for you, being clear about what the other side is going to get out of your interaction, and matching up the different outcomes to maximize the benefit, and actually kind of work on what that looks like, so that you're more mentally prepared for the conversation and nothing that really comes up throws you off. And also, last point, really getting to know the other side and whoever that is, and you'll know if they're shady if they don't want to tell you anything. So that was my give.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vaughn. Stella, do you want to recap kind of what was going on in your room? You don't have to go, and I know there were a lot of different personal shares and stories, but you want to talk people through what your workshop consisted of?
Yeah, so I mean, I want to give a shout out to just everyone that joined my group. It's really just scratching the surface, but what the surface was that was being scratched on is, rewrite your money story. Part of that is figuring out your why, which I call your money mission statement, and getting really clear on that, and also figuring out what's that one money challenge, or maybe it's a traumatic financial experience that you had, and that when you think about it, that's the one that comes up and you're like, this is what could be in holding me back from getting to my money mission statement, getting clear on those two things. And I also think that when figuring out the money mission statement, I love to guide people through their individual money mission statement, but also what's their mission statement for the collective. What do they want to see in the world? Abundance is a way of life, and just because if I'm in abundance but it's at the expense of someone else, that's not truly abundance, because both have to be abundant to truly be abundant. So that is that is kind of my recap, and we had some brave people. I mean, every single person shared, so that was really brave, and I just want to say thank you. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Stella. And last but certainly not least, Alana, I know there was a lot of planning put into and a lot of thought for what you're doing, but do you want to recap for people a bit of what you took people through? I think you're still on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who shared some of their reflections from the workshop, and everyone who's attended this, because that's the first step, is just participating and taking accountability for your life. And I think that's really inspirational. What we did is we took one page, an 8.5 by 11, and we really mapped our life on that one page, and wanted to make it simple, right? To realize that you could put your life story on a page, including your legacy and your past and your future across a few dimensions. And the reason to do that was, one, it's a great visual reminder going into the year, and it's iterative and it will change, and it's not a contract. But the fact that realizing that we're a product of our habits, our stories, our history, our psychology, our trauma, our dreams, our frustrations, our ambitions, all of those things on a page can then just make it a bit more manageable to think about how to think about numbers and community, and realizing that you can leverage your networks and your support systems to achieve those now bite-sized goals. So that's what we went through. And And I think kind of the next stage of that is then to, you know, really understand how those different aspects in your psychology and your story can be combined with a real, you know, financial checklist and plan. And so, you know, shared the survey link for anyone who wants to take that, but that would be the next step.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alana. And any of those sort of links, maybe you missed them in the chat or you haven't copied them into, you know, I don't know how you're doing it or you're writing them down like individually for the URL, but don't worry, this stuff will be in an email that you guys will be getting tomorrow. So you can stay in touch. You can, you know, follow all the lovely panelists if you are not already connected with them, be able to reach out to them, all of that good stuff. And, you know, definitely stay tuned. We're hoping to do more of these with, you know, the same lovely panelists, maybe for other people. And, you know, also look out for like a feedback survey, because we'd love to hear feedback on how you thought the format of the event was, if you want more or less of something, if you want more time with the panelists and the workshops. Possibilities are endless. And if you guys know me, I'm all about the collaborative aspect of it. So thank you all for being here. To kind of recap for anyone else who's even watching this after the fact, there's a couple different things you can definitely look out for in the emails to follow. So, you know, definitely check out and join Alana's Eve Wealth beta stuff. Check out the Google form that she has dropped in the chat for Stella. You know, I think we're all really excited to join her Discord. So, you know, keep in contact with her. She's a, you know, a bright light in my life, and I know a lot of other people's as well. And for Yvonne Marie, she has a bunch of really great blogs. Definitely subscribe to what she's doing over on her WordPress site. So all of that will be linked in everything below, and the panel portion, as well as this kind of not really Q&A, but, you know, takeaway session at the end of our event will be available, while the workshops will not be. Look out for, you know, the more, as these continue to develop, as they do more workshops, definitely stay in touch and be along for the journey. So for my panelists, is there anything else you guys want to say to kind of end off the night? Nope. Awesome.
I do.
Okay.
I hope that everyone continues to just attempt to live their best lives even throughout all of this. And I'm grateful that you all did take time away from your day to be with all of us. So thank you.
Yeah, echoing Vaughn for sure. And you know, this is just the start, and it's amazing that the start is already looking very abundant and bright for, you know, the rest of the year and also 2021. Let's hope that it's very different from 2020.
Thanks everyone.
I agree.
And
yeah, thank you again to all the panelists for being here, for donating your time, for all of you for choosing to be here in real time so we could gather. I love that, you know, while this is in a virtual setting, we're all in very different places, walks of life, but also just cities and zooming in from everywhere. So thank you all for being here tonight, for saying yes to, you know, that first step of choosing yourself and kind of building this community around it. Because as you all have kind of noticed, I think the running theme is that, you know, it's easier when we go about it all together rather than just going at it alone. So thank you again. I hope you guys have a great rest of the night, and we'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.